Hey everybody, welcome to Short Take Saturday. It's Andrew Hoey. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day and had a wonderful week. I know a lot of us in Cleveland might be coming off that Cavs loss to OKC the other day, but I'm not panicking about anything in regards to the Cavs. This video is going to be about those 4 playoff games this weekend in the NFL, and of course my prediction for the College Football National Championship on Monday. So let's start things off with game number 1 between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. Obviously, I like the Chiefs in this game. Houston, I think, has had another pretty good season. I didn't expect them to win a playoff game last week, so I was pretty impressed by that. But having said that, though, I think the Houston Texans' reign has come to an end. I think Kansas City is clearly the better team, the more clutch team. I just have yet to see that moment from C.J. Stroud this year where he really, uprises against great competition. I think the Buffalo win was the only time I really saw that this year. And I know Houston almost beat Detroit, but they blew that game. So I think that's a big thing that's going to, I think, be a factor in this game in regards to the Houston Texans. So I'm going to take Kansas City to win it. I think it's going to be relatively close and a relatively defensive game. So let's go 16-14 KC at Arrowhead Stadium. That place gets loud. We know the impact it makes. So I'm going to give the Chiefs the favor here against the Houston Texans. All right, let's move on to tonight's game between Detroit and Washington. I like the Detroit Lions tonight. I think Washington makes it tough, and I think it's going to be a pretty offensive game. I think Aaron Glenn is going to have a little more difficulty scheming this offense up. I know Minnesota's offense was pretty dynamic this year, but Minnesota proved to not have a very dynamic offense the last 2 games of the season. So I'm going to take the Lions to win, but it's going to be like 30-27. I think we see some points on the board in this one. I think Detroit is ultimately the better team and the better offense, and that's why they're going to get it done. But I'm not sleeping on the Commanders on this one. I think people in Washington actually believe they could upset the Detroit Lions, but still, I think Detroit's now a hostile environment to play in, and I like the Lions' offense overall better than Washington's. But Jaden Daniels is kind of playing with house money. The Commanders have pretty much already had a successful season. They won a playoff game for the first time in 20 years, so they're playing with house money a little bit. And I know Detroit, I believe the last time they played Washington in the playoffs, they got smoked like in the 90s. So we'll have to see what takes place there, but I think the Detroit Lions right now should win that game 30-27. And then we'll move on to tomorrow's game. So let's start things off with the first game between the Eagles and the Rams. I like this matchup, and I'm actually going to take the Rams. I really contemplated this because I think Saquon Barkley could just run the football all over you. But I really contemplated this matchup. I think the Rams are going to upset the Eagles, and I think we're going to have another Lions-Rams game, which I think would be great for the NFL, to be honest with you. So I like the Rams in this game because I think they just match up really well with the Eagles in terms of the passing game. Even though the Eagles can run the football, to me, something feels vulnerable about their defense a little bit when playing the Rams. The Rams' offense could kind of get going, but the Rams' offense also has had some low moments this year, especially in some divisional games. They didn't really play the 49ers and Cardinals well at the end of the season, but I still think the Rams, when they played the Bills, really just lit it up, and so I think they could do that again here. I'm going to take the Rams to win this game. I think it's going to be relatively middle of the pack in terms of scoring. Let's go 24-20. LA over Philadelphia. I think Puka Nacua has a big game. I think Matthew Stafford throws for 250-plus yards. Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to run the football a little bit, too, with Saquon Barkley. But, I mean, Saquon Barkley, if he can get through that Rams defense, which I think he can, could make a big impact in this game. But I think Saquon Barkley is going to be the key piece for the Philadelphia Eagles. And can they ride him to the NFC Championship game? We'll have to see. But something about me likes the Rams in this game. So I'm going to take the Rams to upset the Eagles. And then finally, let's talk about that game between the Ravens and Bills. I think this is a great matchup. It's in Buffalo this time, not Baltimore. Josh Allen has kind of underperformed against some of the better quarterbacks in the league this year, including C.J. Stroud in the Houston Texans. So I like Buffalo to win this game. I think they're going to beat the Baltimore Ravens, but I think it's going to be close. I think the Ravens are going to make it challenging on them. And the weather's going to be cold up in Orchard Park. So I think that's going to be an impact on this game. I don't want to say it's going to be relatively high scoring. So let's go 17-16 Buffalo in a cold weather game over the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Baltimore Ravens, though, when they run the football with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson making an impact on that running game, that could be a challenge too. And I think that's going to be possibly where the Buffalo Bills are vulnerable. I think if they don't have some good run defense, I think the Baltimore Ravens could run all over them. So we'll see. But I like the Buffalo Bills overall in that game. I just think they have the better quarterback, and I think they have the better team and the better culture right now. So I like Buffalo over Baltimore, but we'll see what happens there. Which means the AFC Championship would be Kansas City and Buffalo, and the NFC Championship would be Detroit and the LA Rams. I think those are two solid games to have going into championship weekend. What will happen in terms of how those games will play out, if that ends up being those two matchups? It could be Houston and Baltimore for all we know. I doubt that's going to be the case, but it could be. So we'll see. It's a big weekend in divisional NFL football, and I'm excited to see what takes place. So once again, I'm going Kansas City 16, Houston 14. I'm going Detroit 30, Washington 27. I'm going LA Rams, I believe it was 24-20 over the Eagles. And then I'm going Buffalo over Baltimore 17-16. So those are my predictions on NFL weekend. Now, Ohio State and Notre Dame. I briefly touched this on the last edition of Raw Takes, but I'm going to touch it again here. I think this is going to be a bigger defensive game than anyone expects, but I still think Ohio State's going to score 3 touchdowns. I'm going to go the Buckeyes over the Fighting Irish 21-17. Ryan Day brings home a national title to the city of Columbus. I think Notre Dame is going to make it hell for Ohio State in the trenches, and I think Marcus Freeman has done a tremendous job as Notre Dame's head coach. So for this college football matchup, I'm really excited to see what happens in the trenches. I think if Will Howard makes some good key plays, he'll be just fine. Jeremiah Smith is going to be a key offensive piece. And you look at a guy like Jack Sawyer, did he raise his stock in terms of the NFL draft? Could he have another spectacular play like he did against Texas? We'll have to see. I think Ohio State's going to win that game, though, 21-17. And I think that loss to Michigan that took place in November is going to slowly fade away more because of how great this playoff run was for the Buckeyes. That's it for today's edition of Short Take Saturday. The Cavs play the Timberwolves tonight. I'll reflect on the Cavs and some of the other things going on in the NBA on the next edition of Raw Takes this upcoming Tuesday, along with my thoughts and feelings on what happens this week in Wild Card Weekend in the NFL. Have a good one, everybody, and I'll see you next week. This has been Short Take Saturday with Andrew Hody.